Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Real World Blockchain, the podcast brought to you by Web3 Enabler, the first and only payment in cryptocurrencies on Salesforce. Hi, Niles, and hi, Rebecca. How are you guys?
Hi.
Oh, I'm wicked fine. How are you?
Well,
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that speech from the Lamborghini movie where the guy basically trolled Ferrari and so Ferrari and told everyone, you buy a Ferrari because you want to be somebody. You buy a Lamborghini because you are somebody. And so I don't know what that means in this perspective, but maybe you guys saw that. But today, Ferrari announced that you can now pay your Ferrari in crypto payments. Not that I have enough to pay for Ferrari at the moment, but I found the news quite interesting, and maybe actually you can be not somebody and nobody if in the future you can pay with Monero or other very private cryptocurrencies. We'll see. That was the trivial
Mm.
and funny news of the day, but the real interesting news today is that Ethereum ETFs are approved by the SEC. Niles and Rebecca, what can you tell us about that?
I'll let you open it, Miles.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think it was a pretty good turnout. It's been roughly about a billion of trading volume, which is pretty good. Yeah, it was a little less. Well, it was a lot less than what Bitcoin came out with. But also, if we think about just the value and the amount of market capital that is in each of these different coins, um, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. There wasn't as much fanfare that I don't know if retail investors that are not in the crypto space or as familiar with Ethereum and just based on that trading volume, yeah, it was roughly like 8% lower than what Bitcoin did. And that is quite a bit. However, this is something that is going to be monumental, or I guess already is, because ETH is now recognized on traditional stock exchanges.
Mhm.
I personally think this will be even more impactful than Bitcoin. So, well, in terms of value, not that much, but Bitcoin and Ethereum, the two of them together are basically totaling 70 plus percent of the whole,
Yep,
value of the
easy,
liquid crypto
easy.
assets in the world. So there's a Pareto thing here, like 80% of the value are held by two big
Mhm.
networks. It's not centralized, but still it's on these assets. But I think it's going to be more impactful because Bitcoin is, well, I like to say that it's good, like these good old fancy cars that you can repair just by hitting them with a hammer. Bitcoin is elegant because of its mathematical purity and its rusticity. So, because of that, you will still see Bitcoin in 20, 30 years, probably just
Mhm.
the same way you will still see those old cars because they are basically unkillable. And that's something that I find interesting, but be, its elegance and its rusticity is also its weakness. Ethereum is still a bit complicated and needs scalability, technological advancements, but the team knows about it, the founder knows about it, the community knows about
Mhm.
it, and everyone is working towards that. And the fact that it's becoming more recognized means that when Ethereum is ready in a few years, I don't know when exactly, but when it's ready, that means that all the banks that have, blockchain initiatives, all the governments that maybe will find CBDCs to be slightly less easy to manipulate than what they thought, all the agencies, the insurance companies having a blockchain initiative will find it very practical to have a computer science, you know, team, a
Mhm.
technology, in the palm of their hand that is also tied to an asset recognized by financial authorities. That means that basically we're not in some geeky territory or an R&D initiative. It's something that is traded every day, and it's just as if you were saying, well, I'm using IBM and they're on the stock exchange, and I'm using these
Yes.
IBM computers for my
Right.
bank. What do you think about that, Rebecca?
Yes. No, I 100% agree. And I think they have different use cases. So obviously, they're going to come into the market at different price points. And as you were mentioning, like Ethereum is working on things that are less popular, I would say. Right? They focus more on like smart contracts and things like that, which are a lot of value for the space. But I think if you're not really involved in the space, you're not as familiar with it. Bitcoin's status comes from it being the original currency, right? So it
Right.
has
It's
this
easier
like
to understand.
yes. I mean,
Right.
I remember a few years ago when I would tell someone I'm in Web3 and they're like, what is that? All you had to say, it's like Bitcoin. They're like, oh, yes, I know, right? So, like, there's this widespread understanding what Bitcoin is versus Ethereum, which is younger, but, and they're building completely separate things. So, it's really exciting for the space and to see what kind of comes with it. So, yeah, keeping my eye on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's very fun to be talking about the value of ETH and what is being launched in the ETF in dollar values. But at the same time, I have to wonder, is this because Ethereum as a real use case of gas, right? Like it has utility and it has what you could think of as dividends via proof of stake that you are now able to go and do future projections and then roll that back to current values. And is this something where Bitcoin, like, sure, you can call it digital gold, but at the same time, it's purely speculative. It's like, what is the next guy willing to buy it for?
Yeah.
But that's the same thing as gold. Like this is not a Ponzi scheme, right? Like this is real. But with ETH, you can go and start doing mathematical functions to go and decide what you believe the functionality is worth. And I wonder how much is going on there because this is the first time that a smart contract focused chain has come to the market. And what are we going to see next? Like, are we going to see also something very similar? Whether or not it's Solana or like XRPL or like anything else that is related to that. I don't have an answer for that, but this is what I'm wondering.
Yeah. And $1 billion is a lot. Like
that is a good amount. It's a good amount.
Like yes,
and it's, that's one day. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's a lot. Like I don't know a ton about the stock market, but I would love to find out like what does a normal non-Web3 company kind of like bring in on their first day and see kind of how that compares. I think that would be a really interesting comparison. So
it's not the
so also, if you think about it, like how long was Apple around, and
Yes.
how long did it take
40 years.
Apple to reach $1 trillion? Right, that was like back in like 2017, I want to say. Listeners, please fact check me. But that's quite a while. When did Bitcoin come around? When did that hit $1 trillion?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have some big players too, right, that are coming in like and putting together these ETFs. So I think like that signals that there is faith in the space and that is not just like you mentioned earlier, a Ponzi scheme or something like that.
So it's not the biggest ETF, but it sure isn't the smallest. Just a few numbers for the people who are listening to us. The upfront costs to launch a new ETF to an existing series trust with all the exemptive orders in place and so on. The upfront cost is basically a bit less than $100,000. And you know, if you add assets, the costs go incrementally, and that's usually always bigger. And it's not that different when you're looking to launch a cryptocurrency. But basically, registration costs, if you add that to the price I mentioned, make the price go up to $500,000. So it's pretty costly to actually run an ETF. So that has to be beneficial. But still, getting $107 million of inflow and topping at $1 billion at the launch is really a good performance. It's you have to compare to the other values, and yes, some bigger companies and some key values like oil-based ETFs and so on are probably could be laughing at the Bitcoin ETF or the Ethereum ETF, but that's by no means a small performance, and that's by no means something that the traditional finance is laughing at now. Basically, the cryptocurrency sector is taken seriously, and that's interesting. That's something that I find inspiring for the next decade, and especially really because Ethereum is a whole tech stack. It's not just a payment system or a digital gold. It's a technology that could replace the traditional way of computing and traditional way of computing and of communication from one computer to another.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, this is money for computers, and I wonder, Rebecca, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, as far as at what point are we going to stop pricing these tokens that are Ethereum native in dollars, and when are we going to just think of it in ETH?
I've actually seen many people saying, no, it's not the Bitcoin that is volatile. It's actually the dollar or the euro or any currency. And I can see some logic in that because it's always the reference point. Is and a dollar could be volatile compared to an onion. So it's really the arbitrary reference point, but also because from time to time, for example, during COVID crisis in France, I saw my digital assets, not necessarily Bitcoin, but I saw my digital assets rise up because French government had printed a lot of money. And I thought to myself, it's not that I'm a super good trader. It's just that the government is doing basically everything it can to lower the value of its own currency and printing a lot of money because of the COVID-induced panic. I'm not blaming them for that. I mean, if I were sitting on their chair, I'm not saying I wouldn't have panicked. It's a lot of pressure also for these guys. What I'm saying, though, is that basically, mechanically, the value of all the other assets that you cannot play with, mechanically, this value rised a bit. So I'm not too shocked by the fact that people would say, okay, a Bitcoin is still worth a Bitcoin, and Ethereum is an ETH is just worth an ETH. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about that.
One Doge equals one Doge. $1 equals $1.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's too different to see it the same way.
In some alternate universe, there is a podcast brought to you by Web Enabler. It's not Web3 Enabler, it's Web Enabler. And in this podcast, there are 3 people talking about the fact that there is a state-issued stablecoin that is pegged to the value of Ethereum and so on. So maybe that's something that will happen. Anyway, last news of the day. You guys in the US saw a presidential candidate resign from his position. That's not something that happens every day. And of course, what's interesting here is, do you think that endorsing Kamala Harris will bear significant changes if she gets elected instead of Joe Biden, for example? Because maybe she will not have the same stance regarding cryptocurrencies, Web3, and the blockchain. Do you think it's going to be basically the continuation of her former president Joe Biden, or is it going to be something else?
I think there's hope. There's hope, right? She hasn't, not that I'm aware of, right? So I could be wrong, but that I'm aware of, she hasn't come out and flatly, said anything pro or against it. So I think right now that's great, because then we have 2 candidates who potentially could be really beneficial for the crypto space. Because we already know how Trump feels, right? So yeah, exactly. So I think there's hope, and that's wonderful. And as weird as it is to have Biden kind of renounce the presidency and then kind of throw everything into a whirlwind, everything happens the way it needs to happen. I'm excited to kind of have some new blood in the game and see what comes out of it. So we'll just have to see, wait and see. Yeah.
Allow me to give a
Yeah, and
perspective of a stranger. Oh, please go ahead.
of course. I was saying that I mean we do know now, actually us today, that Harris will not be speaking at the Bitcoin conference, but that there was even talks that she would be there. I think is a good sign, at least for the industry, that she is interested. And as Rebecca has mentioned and talked about, like we know where Trump supposedly stands um, on this. So yeah, I think that there is a good possibility that we are going to see real regulation and real, at least government recognition on what this even means as far as markets, because I think it's pretty clear as of now that the SEC cannot figure out how to categorize crypto, because securities, non-security, is it like an asset, like what? Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time. And I'm hoping that this is the next administration that can figure out either to change the definition that we have or create something new. Like, it can't be that hard.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's being a little facetious.
Allow me to close this episode with the perspective of a foreigner, of a non-U.S. citizen. It's not every day in the history of such a huge country that you see a presidential candidate resign like 100 days before an election. That means that even though we're in a small bubble of cryptocurrency enthusiasts, and we're basically very happy to see that, yes, we're taken seriously by traditional finance, but it's probably a trivial matter for somebody such as Kamala Harris if she becomes the presidential candidate. So should she be elected, she will have a lot of things to think about before actually, thinking about crypto regulations, which means that the regulation will fall into the hands of the traditional regulator, and sometimes, the devil that you know is better than the angel you don't know. So that could mean that basically that means that the next few years can be predictable in terms of regulations. That's from the perspective of a foreigner, of a non-U.S. citizen. That's what I'm thinking about. I can't say that I'm sure of what I'm saying. It's just an educated guess.
Nobody is. Yeah.
I was just about to say, I think we're we're all feeling very similarly.
Yeah, this is uncharted territory.
All righty. Thank you so much. Thanks, Niles. Thanks, Rebecca. Everyone, this was Real World Blockchain. This episode brought to you by Web3 Enabler. By the way, you guys, usually we don't talk about the life of Web3 Enabler in this episode, in these episodes, but do you guys know that we are launching a campaign on Republic? So, dear listeners, if you are interested, link in the description. You have the ability to be part of this wonderful adventure to bring crypto payments to Salesforce. So please like, share, subscribe, but also check out our republic.co page. There's a crowdfunding
Okay, Gautier, right back at you. I think you also have something else to say.
Oh,
with a very successful.
And yeah, we also were successful for the launch of Sky Protocol. And well, there's a kind of family-like ecosystem here. So of course, Web3 Enabler and Sky Protocol will work together.
We're all friends, yeah.
But thanks everyone for the support.
I'm looking forward to this. I love it. I love it. I'm there.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Thank you.